All right, and we are live again. This is one of those shows that's not about Deos, but is actually, or data. It is absolutely about Deos. And I have Tess Sinke, the creator or creative director of Deos, with me. And of course, I'm the executive director at Deos Contemporary Ballet. And for those of you who don't know, yes, we are indeed married. But yes, I'll let Tess give a quick introduction to herself, and then maybe you can tell us a little bit about Deos before we jump into Trifles here.
Yeah, so I'm the creative director of Deos Contemporary Ballet. I grew up studying ballet at the Grand Rapids School of Ballet. Went all the way from level 1 all the way up through level 7. After I graduated, I went to Mercyhurst University in Erie, Pennsylvania for dance. And then after that, I jumped right into choreography. So we started Deos in 2017 with our first show the summer of 2018. And it started out as a summer-only professional ballet company because there was a real need for professional ballet dancers to have an opportunity to train and be paid for their art when they're typically laid off during the summer months. So that's how we started. We're really excited that we've been able to grow into offering performances outside of the summer.
Yeah, awesome. So we are currently streaming to Facebook, the Deos Facebook page, my LinkedIn profile, and then also the Deos YouTube page. So if you're on a different platform than one that I mentioned, it might be worth hitting the subscribe button on those other platforms such as YouTube and Facebook. And as you can see on the ticker at the bottom, we are taking questions live about Deos and even more so about Trifles. So if you do want to submit a question live that we'll take, just comment in below, whether you're on YouTube, LinkedIn, or Facebook, and we'll see those questions come in and we'll take them as fast as we can. There's a little bit of a delay, so yeah. Let's start. I think maybe we should just show our promo video for Trifles, unless you
Yeah.
wanted to give it a brief introduction about what they're gonna see.
Yeah, I'll give a short introduction. So,
Okay.
Trifles was originally a play, one-act play written by Susan Glaspell in 1916, and it was based on a true story. And she wrote this during the time when women didn't have the right to vote, women didn't have the right to sit on juries. And then, so a couple years later, she turned it into a short story. And now, 100 years later, we're turning it into a ballet. And the whole premise is a man has been murdered, and is the wife guilty or not? And also, why did she do it?
All right. Let's take a look at the promo reel then. Hopefully this works. We'll see. It does not appear to be working. Oh no. This is a brand new feature on the platform that we use called StreamYard. So I'm going to try to quick load that up one more time, and we'll see what happens this time if it works.
Deos Contemporary Ballet was founded in 2018. I am the creative director, and I founded Deos Contemporary Ballet because I saw a need in the community for summer professional opportunities for dancers.
Trifles is a play written by Susan Glaspell in 1916. A year later, it was adapted into a short story entitled By a Jury of Her Peers. And now, a little over 100 years later, we've adapted it into a ballet.
This is my first time ever hearing of the play Trifles, and as soon as Tess told me about it, I was super excited to not only read the play, but to get started dancing because there's so much great character development and it's such an interesting story. A lot of ballets I performed haven't had a plot to them, or they've kind of been this stereotypical plot where the women might be powerless. And really in this story, the women get to take their own power and make decisions for themselves.
So the general premise of Trifles is that a man has been murdered. We pick up the day following his murder with basically the investigation of the house. Meanwhile, the two women are left alone in the kitchen, and in going through her personal effects, they slowly but surely put together the actual puzzle and figure out not only that she did murder her husband, but why.
Trifles is very different from any other performance that I've ever done, mostly in the fact that there's only 3 dancers throughout the entire ballet. There are actors that also come in, which is different than anything else that I've done before. So they're going to be having some speaking lines.
In Trifles, we get to portray characters and then we get to embody them. Not always do you get to take on a character and get in their mind, but we do get to do that in this show. So it's really exciting to become someone else on stage.
Being able to work on Trifles, which is, was originally a play written by a woman in a time where women didn't have equal rights, is really exciting to now create a ballet about that with a team of all women.
All right. So that's a promo video that we put together, I think, a little bit earlier this week with a lot of rehearsal footage. And we got our first comment coming in from Charles Elwood on LinkedIn. A play adapted to a ballet. Is that a common thing in ballet, Tess?
It's not uncommon, I guess. All ballets originate from somewhere. And, in the past, a lot of really well-known famous choreographers throughout history have taken operas or fairy tales and turned them into ballets. Turning a one-act feminist play, that is not common. So this is a little different. I think the other big thing that's different is we've taken elements of the play, that's our son in the background, taken elements of the play and turned, sort of meshed it into the ballet. So we do have male actors who still speak very, very key lines of the play, which just, I think, makes the ballet even that more impactful. And so that's very new as well. It's not something that's done very often. So
interesting. Yeah. And we also have another question, this time from Audrey Hendon on LinkedIn. Do you recommend reading the play before seeing the ballet?
I do recommend it because, it's just like if you go to see a movie that's based on a book, you're going to get so much more out of it if you've read the book first. However, the story, I think we did a really good job of making sure that the story is told very clearly through the ballet. And we do have a nice intro, while you're sitting waiting for the ballet to start, where the storyline is shared with you. So you won't be totally in the dark. But yeah, it'll just be a richer experience if you've read the play or the short story first.
That's one thing I've always found very interesting about ballets is the ability to communicate all this stuff without there even being any words in it. And this seems like particularly challenging content to convey through just movement. But what I've seen in rehearsals, it's gonna be stellar.
Yeah.
So yeah. If you have any other comments, we're of course going to be taking questions through this whole thing here, this live stream. But I thought it might be a good time to address a frequently asked question that we get when we start talking about Trifles, and that is, what safety precautions are we taking for this show?
Yeah, so we're taking a lot of precautions. The play or the ballet is at Calvin University, so they're very strict and very careful and precautious as well. So we've worked with them to develop all of the rules that we have set in place. So for starters, the theater seats 300, but we are only selling 45 tickets per show. So you'll be seated in your household pods, and those seats are 6 feet away from all the other audience members. We're really lucky that we're in a space where we're able to spread everyone out that way. Masks are required. There will be a symptom check upon entering the door. We have staggered arrival times. You'll also be dismissed by seating pod after the show by our ushers. We'll have social distancing throughout the lobby. There is no printed materials being handed out. Everything is going to be, displayed on the screen beforehand for you, so nothing getting passed back and forth. We're also doing deep sanitization of the entire space in between our performances. And then also all of our actors and performers will have had COVID tests and have negative COVID tests within 24 hours from being in the space. So we're really trying to take every precaution we can to bring live theater and dance back during this time.
Yeah, and one of the things that we've had to do is change up our ticket sale process. So instead of being able to just go online and select your tickets, we're adding in the ability for us to make sure we can contact trace a little bit. So we're collecting email addresses so we know how to get into contact with people in case there is something that happens. And so because the purchasing process is just a little bit different than normal, I thought it might be a good idea to show a few visuals of what that looks like. So I've got a couple of screenshots here to show. So let me pull those up real quick. Yes, so this is what the landing page of triflesballet.com looks like. And Tess is going to drop out for just a moment here. So yes, this is what the landing page for Trifles Ballet looks like. You can scroll down a little bit farther to see all the information that we're talking about, and as well as the promo video. But I wanted to show this section right here where we're using an order form to collect all of the sort of information we need to ensure that this performance is COVID safe. So for example, we need email addresses, and let's say you buy 4 tickets. We would want to know how you want to divide those tickets up between pods of up to 4 people. So the pods are spaced throughout the audience. So when you type in your email address here and you hit the button for send order form, you're going to get an email from us, hopefully immediately. But if within a couple of minutes you don't get that, there you can reach out to anybody on the Deos team, Andrew at Deos Ballet. We'll have all of our contact information all over the place, including on the website, so it's hard to miss us. And then just a little bit of info on that email, but you can right away click to fill out that form. And here's what that form looks like. So again, there's some pertinent information we want to make sure you read, but all we really need from you is your email address. We'd like your first and last name so we can say hi to you personally. But then there's kind of 2 sections here. How many total tickets you want to a show, in this case the 1 p.m. one, and then how you want to divide those tickets up into pods of up to 4 people. And so those questions are just repeated again for the 8 p.m. show. And then the last bit is the venue, the Gazan Auditorium at Calvin University does require that people agree to wear a mask at all times and to social distance, stay home, all the type of stuff that I'm sure we're all used to seeing during the COVID pandemic. So, if you agree to that and submit, what will happen then is as I get these form submissions, I work through and I will send an invoice to your email address, and that's through a platform called Stripe. So it's really, really easy. You can use a credit card, or if you want to, you can use a wire transfer, but pretty much everybody just uses a credit card. It's really, really convenient. And then that's pretty much the end of the process, other than us reaching out to you and a little bit later to schedule your arrival time. Because as Tess mentioned, we're scheduling arrival times. That way there's not everybody trying to enter the space at the same time. And that'll likely come with a QR code ticket. The ticket might take a different form, but we'll be sending the ticket at that time, so that way we can have a contactless ticketing process for you as well. And then one other thing to note on the whole buying tickets process, we are not selling tickets at the door. So the only way to get tickets to this show is to order them in advance online. And that can be done at the website, or if you prefer, you can call/email us through the contact information you find on the page. You'll still have to go through the invoicing process, but maybe you can skip the form process if you do it that way. And just yesterday, we ended up selling, it was our best day of sales so far. We sold about a quarter of an entire show yesterday alone. So if you want to come to the show, there might not be very many days left in order to get tickets. So I would not wait till the day beforehand. So yeah, and it looks like Tess is coming back. So we're going to bring her back onto the live stream, and she brought Theo with her. Hey, Theo.
He wasn't too happy being by himself, so he's hanging out with us now.
Yeah, that's fair. So yes, we've gone over what Trifles is. You gave an initial introduction to what Deos is doing. We do have a few more questions that we have heard before the show that we're bringing on that people submitted in advance. So I thought I'd bring one of those up right now. What is the dress code for Trifles?
Dress code is whatever you want to wear. You know, some people, when they go out to the theater, it's their night out. They want to get super dressed up and do a date night, and other people, if you feel most comfortable coming in t-shirt and jeans, come in t-shirt and jeans. We do not judge. We do not care. Come what you're most comfortable in and enjoy the show.
Yeah, our performances, we like the more casual, laid-back feel. We don't think that ballet has to be this sort of like high art form that you have to wear a tuxedo to go to. It can be part of just everybody's lives, because the stories that we try to tell at Deos are about the experiences that you have in every day, right? So like not this past summer because of COVID, but in 2019, we did a show called Collide, which maybe you could tell us a little bit about what that previous show was about.
Yeah, so our previous show, Collide, and now also our summer season going forward will be called the Collide series. So it's a mixed rep performance, mixed repertory. And all of the pieces, they're all very different, but they all have one thing in common, and that how do we as humans handle when our reality doesn't, go as planned, when our reality collides with what we think our future should be, or how we think we should be handling emotions. And so the summer repertory show is very much focused on, human nature and emotions and struggle and happiness and love sometimes. And so, we want ballet to feel relatable to everyone. There doesn't need to be any elitism involved.
Yeah.
That's why, there's no dress code. Come as you are. Enjoy the show. And
it's not all point shoes, tutus, and fantasy, right?
Right.
So we got another question here from Charles Elwood on LinkedIn. How did Tess find out / hear about Trifles?
That is a very good question. So my sister is actually, she's like my dramaturge. So she
What's
grew up in
that?
the theater. She does a lot of the research that goes into developing a ballet. So we've worked in this capacity together for the last couple of years, where she brings a lot to the table from a actor perspective of how do we convey emotions. I almost describe her as like an editor. A writer has an editor. My sister, as a dramaturg, is my choreographic editor. So she's not a dancer, but she comes from the theater. So when I initially brought the idea of trying to do a show during COVID to her, I said, we need to try and find something that will stand on its own when COVID isn't around. It was really important to me that we either find something that is meant to be a small cast, is meant to be performed in front of a small audience, or we don't do anything at all. Because I don't want to sacrifice the quality of the art for the times. And she was the one who actually came back with Trifles after she did some research, and she said, you've got to read this play. I think this is it. This has to be it. And through that, then the research process that we did together, it just became more and more clear that this was definitely the way to go. And then when casting our 3 dancers, I think that made it even more clear because we realized that the 3 dancers we have are the perfect fit for the characters.
Yeah. And I don't know if you mentioned this earlier, but that sort of like the fact that we have to rehearse the actors and the dancers separately, that almost like came out as a result of it, which ended up giving some sort of added impact to the choreography that you were putting together, right?
Yeah. So when we came to the idea of, Trifles, it's a really small cast. We can do it with 3 female dancers. And then because we don't want to do any pas de deux work or dancers, touching each other because of COVID, we came up with the idea of having the male characters played by actors instead of dancers. And we came to this idea because of COVID, but now that we've reached this idea, I don't think I would ever go back and redo it with dancers instead of actors. And so right now, Kate rehearses the actors separately and I rehearse the dancers separately. And then at the end, we'll bring them back all together. But the whole ballet, there's a lot of, division of the sexes and the women being, silenced, whereas the men hold the power. And so by rehearsing them separately and also by giving the men actual voice, whereas the women portray their voices through movement, I think it just makes the message that much more powerful.
Yeah, yes. All right. So, can you tell me a little bit about the venue that people are going to see this at? And actually, maybe an even better question, I'm going to pull up the basic information here. Yeah. We'll be bringing this up again a little bit later so people can see all the basic information. But I thought this one had the birdcage on it. I see a birdcage on a lot of our marketing, including, let's see here, the webpage like I had brought up earlier. Can you tell us a little bit about the birdcage and maybe some of the other props that people will see on the show during the show?
Minimalistic. There you go.
Sorry.
We were very minimalistic when it came to the choice of props. There's a lot of symbolism throughout the ballet and the original play. So we decided we were only going to introduce props that had a very significant meaning. So the bird cage is extremely significant. So in the story, we find out that Minnie Foster, the one who's accused of murder, has used to have a bird, and this bird was like her only piece of happiness through her very broken marriage. We don't get a lot of detail on what kind of abuse is happening, but we know it's not a happy or healthy marriage. And the two other women in the ballet, they, through discovering clues, find out that the bird has been killed by having its neck strangled. And they figure out that the bird was killed by Minnie's husband. And so then at the end, we find out that Minnie, that's her motive. That's why she kills her husband, because he took away the one piece of happiness that she had out of his anger. And so the bird cage on stage, obviously we don't have a live bird or a dead bird. So the bird cage represents that there was a bird, and then at the same time we see throughout the ballet there's moments where there's shadow light reflecting through the bird cage and almost casts the cage around Minnie while she's dancing, just portraying that, you know, her whole life since being married to this man, she's been basically the same as like a bird in a cage.
Gotcha. And were there other what are the other props that we have on the on the stage?
We've also got a box which is representative of where the dead bird is hidden, and then a rocking chair. And the really cool thing with the rocking chair is that no one else sits in the rocking chair the entire play. Erica, who plays Minnie, is the only one who sits in the rocking chair throughout the whole ballet. And that's because we kind of want the audience to put themselves in Minnie's position and to empathize with her and with her situation of feeling desperate. And so the rocking chair is very purposefully left empty throughout parts, or with Minnie herself sitting in it, because it's a place for us to put ourselves on stage. And then the last major prop is a quilt. And the quilt is supposed to be a log cabin quilt, which, you know, back in the day represented home and, you know, love for your family and all of this. And it's an unfinished quilt. And it's very clear that Minnie was trying to finish it, but then had a really hard time, and the stitching is all wrong and it's messy. And so the two women realized that she was trying so hard to be the perfect housewife and to do everything right, but something in her snapped because of this unhealthy and abusive marriage.
That's great. So just as a reminder to any viewers out there, we are taking questions live. So if you have any, you can just simply comment on the post. So whether on Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube, it's really easy to just drop in a question and we'll take them as soon as they pop up through our platform here. I do have a question for you though, Tess.
Yeah.
What makes Trifles, like that whole creating process for you, different than other ballets that you've done?
That is a good answer. So in the past, a lot of what I choreograph is based on my own experience or an experience of, you know, someone very close to me or a loved one. And obviously Trifles is not my own experience. I am in a very, very happy, very, very healthy marriage. And we live in a time where, you know, we women have the right to vote. We're much more equal. There's still a long way to go in some areas, but so it's much more outside of my comfort zone in that way. But at the end of the day, it's about portraying human emotion and kind of exploring what it means to be human. And that includes flaws and tragedy, like what is happening in Trifles. And so I think that core piece of creating it has made it actually simpler than I thought it would, because everyone can identify with those, you know, emotions that are the same for every human being on this planet. And even though in Trifles there's a murder, which most of us can't identify with, thank God, the emotion behind everything that happens is something that everyone can identify with. And I think creating a ballet that is pushing the audience to feel empathy for the characters and to be able to put themselves in that position, you know, that's something I really love doing. And Trifles is just so rich with that it's made it actually a really natural thing to choreograph.
Yeah. So when you and I've looked through the audience at our previous shows, there's a lot of people who were actually new to ballet, right? Like maybe they had seen the Nutcracker before when they were young or something of that nature, but by the most part, they were all new to ballet. So if somebody hasn't come to a ballet before and they come to the show, what do they expect? And is it going to be like a normal ballet?
So I think, you know, I think a lot of people have an idea of what ballet is in their mind, that it's tutus and tiaras and, you know, point shoes, which it can be that, and that is beautiful. But it can also be dark and a little nitty gritty and powerful emotions, and that's what you're going to see with Trifles. It's very, very powerful. It's very emotional. The movement isn't all classical. It's more contemporary. And the dancers are so committed to what the dancers are so committed to what they're doing that they, you know, they're portraying their characters so strongly and so well that I think anyone who comes to see it, number one, you're going to understand the story. And number two, you're going to feel something because it really hits you pretty strong at the end of the day with this story. And it's just such a rich story. So.
Yeah. So you mentioned in there that it's not just classical ballet. There's also contemporary in there. And in our company name, Deos Contemporary Ballet, we highlight contemporary. I don't think everybody who's outside of the ballet typical world maybe knows what that means. Could you maybe elaborate a little bit on what contemporary means in the context of ballet?
Yeah, so contemporary ballet is still ballet. You know, there's contemporary's become a little bit of a loose term. You know, you've got modern dance like Martha Graham and Jose Limon and Elvin Ailey, and then you've got classical ballet. And so there's such a wide gap in between, and that's kind of where contemporary ballet falls. So for Deos Contemporary Ballet, we're still very balletic, but we don't do a lot of point shoe work. We don't do tutus. So we focus
in this show.
In this show, right?
Yeah.
So this show is much more, it's more contemporary. There's a lot of pedestrian, which when I say pedestrian, I mean non-dancer, non-ballet movement throughout, which kind of helps you connect to them being humans versus, you know, a fairy tale or something.
Yeah. Oh, man. As you're saying all these terms, I'm having like flashbacks to 3 years ago when we started this company, and I showed it to some of the first rehearsals, and just watching the whole creative process was it was kind of like trying to learn by drinking from a fire hose, right? Like, what's marking something? What's contemporary? What does she mean when she keeps saying pedestrian stuff? Which it's kind of interesting that the terminology the ballet industry has decided to use for all of its stuff.
Yeah.
So, yes. One thing that looks like even my dad decided to send in a question. So we'll bring that up, give him some recognition. How simple is it for me to get tickets and actually attend to this great show? Thanks for the plug, Dad. We did cover that earlier in the live stream. So I believe on each of these platforms, you are able to basically move the cursor, right, and go back just like you would on Netflix and check it out. But as a very, very quick overview of it, if you go to triflesballet.com, which I'm bringing that down the ticker here, you'll land up on a web page like this. There's a bunch more info if you scroll, but if you are interested in getting a ticket to this show, we'll send you an order form, and all you need to do is give us your email address. Now, I would love for it to be as easy as you can just directly buy the tickets online, but we're trying to make a very, very COVID-safe performance. So what we mean by that is we're putting a bunch of protocols in place, things like masks being required, social distancing, stage arrival times and departures, and we need to be able to contact you after the show in a sort of contact tracing way to let you know if anything did happen with some of the people who attended and if you might be at risk. And so because of all of this information, which another one I forgot is the audience that are sitting in pods. So the auditorium seats 300, but we're only selling 45 tickets to each show, so that way we can spread out the pods of the audience in a way that keeps everybody safe. So there's a lot more info we need from you than just how many tickets you want to purchase. So we do that through a Google form. So when you send us your email address, you'll get this email from us right away. And if you don't get it, I'll be reaching out to you pretty quick if you don't get it. And then this Google form here, it looks just like this. There's a lot of good information to read up here, but what I want to highlight is we just need your email address again so I know how to line it up with who ordered what tickets. We'd love to personalize it and know your name, but you don't have to give us that if you don't want. And then, just 2 sections. In this case, the 1 p.m. show, how many tickets you want, and how you want to split those tickets up between pods, and a maximum of 4 people can be in a pod at a time. And it's the same questions again, except for the 8 p.m. show. How many do you want, and how you like to split them up in the pods. And last, of course, the venue requires, and we would do this probably anyway, you have to agree to wear a mask and practice social distancing and stay home if you have COVID symptoms. So pretty much everything that you might expect from a live show in this day and age. And when you submit that, pretty soon thereafter, you'll get an invoice that looks much like this with the number of tickets that you requested. So as you can see, tickets are $55 and we are only selling 45 tickets per show to our 2 shows. And I mentioned this a little bit earlier on the stream. Tess and I were both pretty surprised yesterday. Well, I shouldn't say surprised, but ticket sales have been picking up. And just yesterday alone, we sold about a quarter of an entire show. So if this is something that you want to see, I would not wait till the week of or the day before to order your tickets, because we're not selling them at the door. We're only selling them online. So if you want a ticket, don't wait. Go to triflesballet.com. Send me your email address through this little web form here, and we'll get the process started for you. So that's I ended up going through the whole ticket process again. You know, once I get going, I just can't stop. So yeah, and I'll bring this up again too. If you do have other questions, now is a fantastic time to get them answered. We do have all of this information on the website at triflesballet.com. But this is also a really great chance while we've got Tess Sinke, the creative director, online here to be able to answer questions that you might have about Trifles. So just a little bit earlier, we had a question from Audrey Hendon. If you didn't see the earlier part of the stream and don't feel like scrolling back, she had asked if you recommend reading the play before seeing the ballet. Would you mind just answering that question briefly once more? Because I thought that was a really good question that a lot of people were hearing offline too.
Yeah,
so.
So like I said before, it's the same as like a movie that's based on a book. You're going to get more out of the experience, I think, if you've read the play or the short story, which is called By a Jury of Her Peers. Reading that beforehand is going to give you a little bit deeper experience, but we do a very good job of telling the story, and we also will have, the storyline for you to read before the ballet starts. So you're not going to be lost if you don't read the material beforehand.
All right. And I feel like it's been probably the entire show since I brought it up briefly earlier, so I'm going to pull up all of the basic information here for when this show is taking place and things of that nature. So this is a show called Trifles. It's based on a 1916 play by Susan Glaspell that Tess has adapted to become a ballet. All of the performances are on one day, February 27th, so just 2.5 weeks, I think, as of the time of this streaming. Well, pretty much just 2 weeks. And we have a 1 o'clock show, and we have an 8 p.m. show, and this is going to be at Cabin University. So this is downtown Grand Rapids, Michigan, or at least very close to downtown Grand Rapids, Michigan. And it's at Cabin University's Gazan Auditorium. So masks and social distancing are required. We'll be enforcing that because this is not a live streamed show. What we're doing is live streamed right now, but the show itself is going to be live and in person. As far as we know, this is the first ballet performance that the audience is going to be able to see, since the COVID pandemic started. And because we're taking all these precautions, we're only selling 45 tickets per show. And Tess will tell you from all of our other shows, our audience is larger than 45 tickets per show. It's larger than all of the tickets that we're selling for this one. So if you are a existing Deos fan and you want to see this show, don't wait. And if you're a new fan to Deos and you want to see the show for the first time, you got to beat out all of our existing Deos fans to the order button. So I would encourage you this week at the latest to order those tickets so we can schedule your arrival time, which is another safety precaution we're taking, is staged arrivals. That way not everybody is showing up at the same time. And of course, that's our son Theo making background noise. So thanks, Theo.
Yeah, he's excited too.
Yes. Yeah. Oh man, I wish StreamYard would let me show a web page right now. I don't know why. There must be some bug going on. But you recently posted a video on the Deos Facebook page of Theo being in rehearsals, sitting on the floor, watching the dancers. Maybe, that wasn't Theo, was it? Okay, that was Theo. We'll let Tess take a moment here to go check on our son. We mentioned this earlier in the show. But even though we're using different last names, Tess goes by Tess Sinke professionally. We are a husband-wife duo here at Deos Contemporary Ballet. And I was just about to ask Tess a question, but let's see here if she is good to go. Is Theo okay? I'm sure everybody wants to know.
Yes, he just recently started walking, so
yeah.
Now and then he takes a little tumble while he's doing it, but he is happy and good.
That's good.
Yeah, so it's been an interesting experience having him at rehearsal sometimes with me. Obviously, Andrew is great and takes him the majority of the time we have rehearsal, but every now and then our schedules don't align and he gets to come with me to the studio, and so he's growing up as a little studio baby. And I think the dancers actually kind of enjoy it. They've called him their ballet master before because he's very vocal about his feelings in the studio. And
that's a role, right? Normally in a ballet company?
Yeah. And he's started dancing to the music in rehearsals now that he's a little older. So he gets real excited and will start dancing and moving with the music with the dancers. So
yeah, and he's
a future ballet lover here.
He's able to crawl around and able to palm his way along a wall, but we're a little we're intrigued to see how he handles being able to walk around a studio before he can be reasoned with while trying to do rehearsals for our upcoming summer show.
Yeah.
But for now, while we're rehearsing Trifles, he's content to just sway to the music and watch the dancers. So
Yeah.
can you actually we probably won't have this live stream go on for very much longer, but we do have Charles. Phew, glad to hear he's okay. The camera shook. Yeah, it looked like he hit pretty hard.
He was good. He was okay.
Babies are tough. Can you tell me a little bit about what rehearsal looks like in the middle of a pandemic?
Yeah. So again, we have a very small cast. So right now, it's just 3 dancers rehearsing. The 3 actors rehearsing separate rehearsals with Kate. In our rehearsals for dancers, so we do ballet class beforehand, and we socially distance, so they're all on opposite sides of the room from each other. They all wear masks as well as myself. We do a temperature check and symptom check before they enter the building, and then we also sanitize all of the surfaces and everything at the end of rehearsal. And this ballet has no physical touching happening between any of the characters. So we're trying to take every precaution to keep both our dancers and actors and audience safe.
Yeah. So actually, that's a really interesting point, and we briefly mentioned this a little bit earlier in the stream, but we're rehearsing a small number of dancers separately from the actors in the show. And typically in a ballet, you don't necessarily have a spoken part. The ballet is about communicating all of the emotions and the concepts through movement. But in this ballet, we do have actors. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the decision to use actors kind of came because of COVID, but and I said this before as well, now that we've made that decision, if we perform Trifles again in the future, outside of COVID times, I would definitely not go back to the original idea of having them be all dancers. The male actors have very, very specific lines from the play that they say throughout, and the whole play, is based on the premise that women didn't have the same equal rights and were kind of silenced or ignored. And so by having the 3 men act and speak and be sort of a dominant presence on stage, and the women, even though they're the ones who figure out everything about the murder, they are silent and they speak through their movement. I think it just shows that that disconnect and that disparity between the men and the women during the early 1900s. So I think it adds an extra level to the ballet.
Yeah, awesome. There is, so this was a question that got submitted before the show, and I thought I'd bring that on because it is one that we get quite a bit. So you can see here the name of the show is called Trifles, and we are Deos Contemporary Ballet. We just previously went over the contemporary bit of it, but I don't think we touched on what does Deos mean?
Yeah. So first, the name, back when I was in middle school, was when I really realized that what I wanted to do with my life was be a choreographer. And I knew I wanted to have a company someday. And back in middle school, I came up with the name Deos Ballet. So it's been a name that's been in my mind for a really long time. And Deos comes from Soli Deo Gloria, which means to God be the glory. Deos is not a Christian company. We are a secular ballet company. But the Deos bit definitely is an idea that, number one, dancers are where there's a Martha Graham quote that says dancers are the artists for God, or I'm butchering that, but it's something similar to that. And so that's part of the idea behind it. And then also with that, I think that, faith is a big part of my life. It doesn't have to be a part of any of our dancers' lives, but it is something that has inspired me and is a big part of my life. And so I wanted that in the name, but it's not but yeah, like I said before, Deos is not a Christian company. We're a secular company. And yeah, part of it is that Martha Graham quote, which with a crying baby, I'm blanking on it.
Yeah, I was actually just trying to pull this up on the side to see if I could find that. Oh, here it is. Dancers are the messengers of the gods.
There it is. Yes.
Yes. And that's an interesting quote, because one of the things I mentioned earlier in the show that I've come to love about ballet is the ability of the dancers to convey emotion and a message, right, just through motion. So like, you don't have to speak English or French or whatever language to be able to understand what's going on. Like my late grandfather, he absolutely loved the opera, right? But unless you actually know the story, if you're just listening to the words, like, you don't really know it unless you know that language. And ballet is different in that there's no language to it, but there's still a message that gets communicated. So I find that quote very interesting because, yeah, the messengers of the gods, like the gods being like this sort of inherent way of communicating. So I don't know. I'm probably butchering my interpretation of it, but being an engineer, I do the best I can. So
that's a great way to think of it. Yeah, dancers are able to tell and portray really deep, meaningful things without words, and that can be really powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Tess, thank you so much for jumping onto this live stream and sharing a bit more and being able to take some questions from the audience and juggling, handling a baby through all of that. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Take care, Tess. So before we quick close out, I did want to bring up a little bit more information. So we did show this a couple of times throughout the show, and all of this stuff, we're live streaming to Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube, and on each of those platforms, you are able to, I believe, go back and see everything that we talked about in case you're tuning in pretty late here. But yes, so Deos Contemporary Ballet, of which Tess and I run this company since 2018 as a married duo. We hire professional dancers in our summer shows, which is the normal time that we usually perform. We hire dancers from all across the United States. For this show, we have 3 dancers, freelance dancers from the Grand Rapids area that are helping us put together the show Trifles, which, in a very, very short synopsis, a man is murdered and the wife is the primary suspect. And throughout the investigation by some male characters, there becomes this growing question of not necessarily did she do it, but the men are trying to prove that she did it by looking through all the different areas that they would expect to find evidence. Meanwhile, their wives, the women, are going through the so-called women domains of the home, and they're finding all the clues that do in fact show she killed her husband. And so the question there is how they're going to respond to that evidence and what they're going to do with it. So very interesting murder mystery sort of show filled with tension and drama, and it is going to be a fantastic live show, probably the first one since COVID started that ballet fans are going to be able to see in Michigan. So, if you've been missing live events and live ballet in particular, you are not going to want to miss this show. It is Saturday, February 27, 1 p.m. and 8 p.m., and we're performing at Calvin University, which is right by downtown Grand Rapids in Michigan, in their Gazan Auditorium. That auditorium normally holds about 300 people. We are only going to be selling 45 tickets for each show. And sales have already begun. Just yesterday, we sold about a quarter of an entire show. So tickets are starting to go fast. The reason why we're doing so few tickets is because we're trying to make this show as COVID conscious as possible. So masks will be required. Social distancing will be enforced. We have pods that the audience will sit in, socially distanced from the other pods. So that'll be up to 4 people being sat together. We've got staged arrival times. We've got staged departure times. So that way people aren't all congregating at the same time. We got sanitization stations. We're going to be deep cleaning between the shows. It's a show that we feel confident that the audience can feel safe at. So if this is something of interest to you, we're selling tickets for $55 each, and they are not going to be sold at the door. You cannot buy them on site and just show up to these show times. You have to buy them in advance. So the only way to do that is to go to triflesballet.com, which you can see at the bottom of the screen there. I'm going to throw the banner across the bottom here while I pull up a visual of what the website looks like. There we are. So when you go to triflesballet.com, across the bottom, you'll be met with a landing page that looks a lot like this. And because we're taking so many precautions, we unfortunately can't make the ticket buying process as simple as we'd really like. We'd really love it to say, you know, you just click how many tickets you want and you hit order and then enter your credit card information. We need to be able to contact you after the show if we find out that somebody involved in coming to the show could have been contagious, so contact tracing. So we need just a little bit more information from each of our audience members to make sure that we're able to keep everybody as safe as possible. So right before I close out this live stream, I'm going to very quickly go through what you can expect from the ticket buying experience. And if you've missed some of the other stuff, I'm going to run the promo reel again at the end. And then that'll probably be it for the stream. So let's just jump right into it here. All we ask for on the landing page is to get your email address, and then we'll send you an order form. So that'll show up in the email that you just gave us, ideally within seconds. If you're not getting the email, we've got contact information all over our website that you can let us know that you didn't receive it, and we'll make sure you get the order form in a very, very timely manner. So there is some important information that you probably would be best to read on this email. We did cover it all in this live stream, so you can go ahead and hit the fill out form button, and it will look just like this. So again, important information about the ticket buying process. I'll let you read that when you get the order form. All we're asking for is your email address. We'd love to personalize things so we can get to know you a little better, but if you don't want to give us your first and last name, that's fine too. And then we just need to know how many tickets you want. In this case, to the 1 p.m. show. If you're not coming to the 1 p.m. show, just put in 0 here. And then we need to know how to divide those tickets up into pods. As I mentioned earlier, we're spacing the audience out throughout the theater. It normally seats 300, but we're only selling 45 tickets to each show. And so we need to group people up to at most 4, household parties. And so we need to know if you ordered 6 tickets, let's say, are you wanting a pot of 4 and a pot of 2, a pot of 3 and another pot of 3? We just need that information. If you've got less than 4 tickets, we'd still ask that you maybe put a pot of 2 in here, but we could also infer that. And so then we repeat these questions except for the 8 p.m. show as well, because like I mentioned earlier, I would love for this to be a little bit more sophisticated on the website where you could tell us what show to go to, but it's helping all of the contact tracing stuff to do it this way. So after you answer the questions for the 1 p.m., you just have to answer them for the 8 p.m. as well. And if you're not going to the 8 p.m. show, you can feel free to put a 0 there or just leave it blank. It's not a required question to answer. And if this all confuses you because my wording is terrible, that's entirely possible. and this whole thing's blank, we do have your email address. So if there's something weird on the form, I'll be sure to reach out and we'll get this all resolved. The last thing is the venue requires this, and we would do this anyway, but we need an agreement from you that you're going to wear a mask at all times, socially distance, and stay home if you have symptoms or close contact with somebody. So the things that you would come to expect attending a live event in person. All of this stuff, while it's a little bit cumbersome to go through, probably on both ends, is helping us ensure that we can bring ballet back to the stage this early, so everybody who's been missing live events, and especially live ballet, can see it again and enjoy being at a live event watching ballet. And so after you submit this form, very soon thereafter, I will be sending an invoice for the tickets that you requested to the email you provided. And that form will look almost exactly like this, of course, with the number of tickets you requested on it and other stuff. So this invoice, we've made it as easy as possible to pay. There's a button you can click in the email that it comes through that you can pay via credit card. If you don't have a credit card or don't want to pay by credit card, we also have the option to do an ACH transfer, so that's just linking up your bank account information. We use Stripe as a payment processor, so we do not take any of your personal information when it comes to payments. We rely on a secure third-party Stripe, which is used in tons of platforms online out there, as a way to keep your payment information safe. So we want our audience to enjoy themselves and not have to worry about anything. So we go to every length we can to make sure you feel safe from COVID and you feel safe with the information that you give us. So with that, I will take any other questions that you have. I'm going to run the promo reel one more time, and then I'll leave the basic information up for a little bit longer. But while watching the promo reel and looking at that information, if you have any questions, I am taking them for a little bit longer. You can comment on the social media platform you're on, whether it's Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube. You can just comment below, and I'll see that question pop up, and I'll take it live. But without further ado, I'll run the promo reel one more time so you can see what the show is about if you've tuned in a little bit later to the stream. So let's see if this works. It's a new feature. Yes.
Deos Contemporary Ballet was founded in 2018. I am the creative director, and I founded Deos Contemporary Ballet because I saw a need in the community for summer professional opportunities for dancers.
Trifles is a play written by Susan Glaspell in 1916. A year later, it was adapted into a short story entitled By a Jury of Her Peers. And now, a little over 100 years later, we've adapted it into a ballet.
This is my first time ever hearing of the play Trifles, and as soon as Tess told me about it, I was super excited to not only read the play, but to get started dancing because there's so much great character development, and it's such an interesting story. A lot of ballets I performed haven't had a plot to them, or they've kind of been this stereotypical plot where the women might be powerless. And really in this story, the women get to take their own power and make decisions for themselves.
So the general premise of Trifles is that a man has been murdered. We pick up the day following his murder with basically the investigation of the house. Meanwhile, the two women are left alone in the kitchen, and in going through her personal effects, they slowly but surely put together the actual puzzle and figure out not only that she did murder her husband, but why.
Trifles is very different from any other performance that I've ever done, mostly in the fact that there's only 3 dancers throughout the entire ballet. There are actors that also come in, which is different than anything else that I've done before. So they're going to be having some speaking lines.
In Trifles, we get to portray characters and then we get to embody them. Not always do you get to take on a character and get in their mind, but we do get to do that in this show. So it's really exciting to become someone else on stage.
Being able to work on Trifles, which is, was originally a play written by a woman in a time where women didn't have equal rights, is really exciting to now create a ballet about that with a team of all women.
All right. So, thank you all for tuning in, learning a little bit more about Trifles. We will always take questions, even if it's not on a live stream. So if you do have any other questions or comments, concerns, visit either triflesballet.com for ordering tickets and finding more information about this show specifically. Otherwise, you can also visit deosballet.com, which I will put across the screen here. That is our ballet company's homepage. You can find much more information than just about the show, and of course you can get to our homepage from Trifles Ballet as well. But yes, if you are interested in seeing the show that we just, the Trifles that we just put the promo up on, here is all of the information that you might need. So this show is going to be shown live in person near downtown Grand Rapids in Michigan, and that's happening Saturday, February 27, 1 p.m. and 8 p.m. It's at Calvin University, like I said, which is very close to downtown Grand Rapids. We're performing in the Gazan Auditorium, which seats 300 people. However, we are only selling 45 tickets to each of the showings. The reason why we're doing that is because it is a live show and we want to make sure that people are able to be safe during this COVID pandemic. So we are spacing out the audience throughout the auditorium into pods of up to 4 people. So in a theater of 300, we are only selling 45 tickets. Masks are going to be required, social distancing is required, and we're also doing staged arrival times, stage departure. We're going to have a longer intermission to allow people to be able to use the restroom without all congregating in one spot. We've got dots that we're setting around all over the place to help encourage the social distancing. And yeah, it's going to be a fantastic show, and it's going to be a safe show, and I really hope that you'll all take the opportunity to come see ballet live again. If you've been missing live performances, live events, and especially live ballet, this is one that you're not going to want to miss. So thanks again for tuning in, and we'll leave it at that. Take care, everybody.